call to order the December 21st meeting of the Arizona State Parks Board. And with that in mind, I would like to ask Board Member Terry Palmer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Member roll call.
Dale Larson,
Here.
John Sutton, Jeff Buchanan,
Here.
Sarah King,
Here.
Terry Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much, board members. And as our usual custom is just to read the mission statement of the State Parks and Trails and vision statement for the purposes of our members. We are gathered today to be the stewards and voice of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to manage and conserve Arizona's natural, cultural, and recreation resources for the benefit of the people, both in our parks and through our partners. With that in mind, first of all, let's go to the agenda. And by the way, for all of you that are on the phone, welcome. Happy holidays to all of you. Thank you very much for calling in on this. I know it's kind of late in the season, but we definitely appreciate your commitment and your collaboration with the agency. And for those of you who are here in person, welcome. Actually have almost a standing room only here. This is pretty good. Very much appreciate it. All right, with that in mind, the first item is the consideration of action to approve the minutes of our September 21, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing none, the minutes motion passes unanimously. Now kind of going to the meat of the agenda is the consideration of the consent agenda with a couple of caveats. So just so that everybody understands, this is items 2A through 2I. All of these items have been vetted first and foremost by staff, also by the respected trail or off-road vehicle folks. And then AORC went through this entire agenda as well. So what we have in front of us is in effect the fourth formal review of all these items. So items 2A through 2I are noticed as consent agenda items to expedite action. Documentation concerning matters on the consent agenda may be reviewed in the board meeting packet posted at that site and at the Arizona State Parks and Trails office located here on Washington Street. The board may take one vote to act on all of the items on the consent agenda or may remove items for further discussion. Items not removed from the consent agenda will be considered in one motion. Items removed for clarification or discussion by the board will be acted on as appropriate. And with that in mind, I would defer, by the way, before I defer to Board Member Buchanan, Mickey had mentioned this to me. This is over $6 million of grants. It's just an incredible venture into grants for so many worthwhile purposes. And I just, as I was going through it, these projects highlight law enforcement, safety, environmental and conservation education, historical preservation, new trails, restored trails, the first tribal community park, which we'll hear about here shortly, first flow trail network, which is a new concept to me that I had not heard of before. Expanded parking lots because of the parking problems that we have throughout the parks. Trail signs incorporating prehistorical tribal views, master plans, and even a historic mission revival church. So with that in mind, Board Member Buchanan, you have a request.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would like to pull one item each from 2 Echo number 4 and 2 Foxtrot number 2, which is the sponsors Tohono O'odham Nation. It's the Walk Community Park for a couple of reasons. One, it's a significant amount of money that we're considering awarding total is $1.5 million to this one entity, but also because of the nature of the sponsor and the fact that it's a tribal entity, and we have not done this
That's right.
that I know of in the past. My personal connection, I spent some years of my life growing up on that reservation, so I'd like to learn more about it.
All right.
I'd request to pull that one item from 2 Echo and 2 Foxtrot.
All right, Kelly, do you have that? Are there any objections to having those two items pulled from the consent agenda? And I know we have a representative here today who will be able to engage with us on that, so very good. Hearing that, let's go to the remainder of a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the 2 withdrawals.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as recommended with pulling 2 Echo and 2 Foxtrot.
Good job.
Military.
Seconded.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda except for those first 2 items. Is there any discussion? And again, I want to reiterate to all of our guests on the phone, thank you very much for going through this process. Really appreciate your help and support, and we're looking forward to hearing a lot of good things about these projects as they come forward.
Great projects.
So with that, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Yes.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Sarah King,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. All right, with that in mind, to Board Member Buchanan's request, let us do items 4, well, those 2 items. So the Walk Community Park. So first of all, let me introduce Barbara Johnson, who's from the tribe today. Do you want to just give a quick overview of what the proposal is all about, if you wouldn't mind? Sure, if you don't
I
mind.
don't think you'll hear me over there anyhow.
Don't mean to put you on the spot, but since you made the trip over.
Yes, thank you, board, and happy holidays. I'm Barbara Johnson. I'm the owner of the nation's San Javier district. So the nation is made up of 11 districts. We're the one closest to Tucson. And we have no outdoor recreation facility for the district per se. And so this is a first for us. It has been in our planning process for over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it does go back a long ways, the general plans, vision plans, so on and so forth. But we never had the resources that got this close to being able to make it a reality. But a couple things serendipitously happened. One was that one of our planning folks were at a meeting with the county and for something completely separate, which is Santa Cruz River, and the county had suggested that they were looking for good projects for green infrastructure, flood control. And part of the vision that they had for these projects was to ensure that in the end, those flood control projects became community projects. So it was kind of a perfect marriage. That was in 2019. Since then, of course, a lot of things happened in the world, but the county has been working very closely with San Javier District over the last probably year and a half on significant community meetings. They brought in a lot of things like drones you see there on the screen. They met with the kids, they met with the elders. I mean, they partnered with us in all of this, but their leadership was really essential in helping us bring us to this point. So they are bringing us to the 100% design, and that will happen probably around March. This is a picture of the Taka field. The Taka field is, Mickey says, why isn't there any grass out there? No, they don't play this on grass. And normally they don't even play it on a confined field. But this is a great opportunity for the community. It is a sport of women, of multi-generations, and essentially, as Mickey described it, just like stickball. Only it's usually over a larger area. So the project includes the Taka fields. It includes benches and scoreboards, which they've never had before. But really a significant advancement. It also includes playgrounds, and for both ages up to 5 as well as 5 to 12. And it includes a splash pad. Wow. Right now, if they want to experience any of those things, they have to go outside of their community. And this is a very Native American community. So it's not an easy thing to just hop on a bus and go outside the community and hang out in somebody else's hood.
Yeah.
So this is a big, big deal. It also includes 2 ramadas and a pavilion, which really allows the families and the larger community to gather. It's a really community-oriented area. I mean, unlike anything I've ever seen before. Everything is about community. We just had a Christmas party for the community, and my estimate, over 500 people. And they were all Native American except for myself. So it's a big deal to be together and to have space together. We also intend to include cultural elements, which also is a very big deal. And then part of the funding and the reason it got a little high was because it's great to have a little park there, no way safely to get there. No path, no nothing. So we have included about an 8/10 of a mile shared path that takes you from the park 2/10 of a mile to an education center, another 3/10 of a mile to a recreation center owned by Tohono O'odham Nation, not Sanhalia District, and then onto the wellness center for kids at risk. They don't even have a playground, and mission school, and the mission itself. So all that is right there in our reach, yet they'd have to go on a dangerous road to get there. So that was, I think, 100% designed, about 5/8 of it, by ADOT. They ran out of money and the project was put on the shelf. Well, we can resurrect that now, incorporate that partnership in with what we're already doing, and we are ready. I guess that's why I want to give you the confidence, because we haven't worked with the tribes before, is that we are ready. And it's really been a blessing that all these things came together. Seriously, in October, the county was on the line virtually, and they said, you can use our $500,000 investment as a match for heritage funds. Didn't even know. I mean, we wouldn't be here had they not made that just comment out of the blue. Call up Mickey's office, and they're like, yeah, and here's another strategy. You can match this with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And it was a heavy lift to pull off a grant application in just a couple of weeks. Really, it was like 4 weeks. But we did it. We learned a lot as we went along, and that's why the cost of the project, it's a first. It's not, as a matter of fact, when you go through the point system, we get less points because our community has never had an outdoor park. But had we had one, and we were updating things after 20 years, we would have higher points. So there's a lot of things that were kind of working against us, but at the same time, there were so many people that were working for us. And that's what brings us here today. It's going to be a magnificent outdoor recreation community. And the other thing I want to stress is our tribe reportedly has the highest rate of diabetes 2 in the world. And, well, okay, picture this. You have basically a hunter-gatherer tribe stretched over, probably a distance the size of Rhode Island, and eating 40 primary things. And then now you're today, just a few generations later, and it's just a perfect storm of trouble. So that outdoor recreation becomes even more important to our community, to have that for them to gain back that outdoor activity. So what are your questions? And did I answer some?
Thank you very much. No, really appreciate that. Board Member Buchanan.
I don't have questions.
I don't
I
either, it's great.
heartily support it though.
Very good.
Thank you. It matters, and that's why I'm here. It matters.
Well,
Very
for Barbara, and by the way, what is your position with the
I'm a
tribe?
planner.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I have over 30 years in outdoor recreation. It was just, again, serendipitous that I was working on a project that was helping the community, and the community says, well, why don't you just come work for us? It's like, okay, but the grant was never on the horizon, not until October. So I'm very blessed to be here.
Well, we're blessed to have you here today and to be able to do this. And as Bob and I know, we have wanted desperately to get more tribal collaboration with these grants. And it's a very difficult process, and as well as you know, working with tribal politics, going through the various areas, and there's certainly a lot of values that are at risk, but you now are opening the door for that so that we can use this as an opportunity to talk to other tribes about similar kinds of projects and situations on it. So we're looking at this as really a best practice kind of thing coming down the pike.
Well, I think it will be, but we had a few things in our favor. One, the one-to-one match is a barrier.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the funds. There's just no way. The county supported us. The other thing is our chairman for our district has been there for 31 years. Outstanding leader. So when I brought the application to him in the 11th hour and said, sign here, please, he did. You know, not too many leaders would do that. So, yeah, there are a lot of different, and there's a lot of different terminology and language barriers, which you don't think about, but there are. You know, like, well, is this part of the municipal comprehensive plan? A lot of tribal people would say, municipal comprehensive plan, what the heck is that? Probably not. So anyhow, anything I can do to help, I will. I do believe in this.
Well, please extend us an invitation to come when you do your groundbreaking dedication or however that works.
Absolutely.
And I think certainly Board Member Buchanan, since he's a former resident who lived there for a while, would be welcome with open arms.
Although Sells is about 3 hours away.
It's kind of out in the middle.
Very big reservation, and using the federal terms, historically disadvantaged, incredibly impoverished. The unemployment rate is 67%. Poverty rate is about the same.
Well, as you probably know, the Secretary of Interior is Native, Indigenous. Secretary Howland is there, and I think once this is started to wrap up and everything is ready to go, I think Bob, it would be great for us to inform her office to take into consideration just what you mentioned, and maybe we can get her to come out here and really be able to visit that. I think that'd be a great opportunity.
She would be most welcome, as would you, and photo ops to encourage other tribes to have some confidence around it would be good. So.
Yeah, it's also a priority for Governor Hobbs as well, to increase, improve collaboration and working. In fact, it's one of the mandates that all of us, and we'll be doing this, there's the Tribal Liaison Day in, I think, 2 weeks.
Oh.
So we have a booth every year. We inform about grants and things, but I'll also be sitting on a panel that I can answer questions and talk directly to tribal leaders and others that are interested in what we have to offer. So, it's,
And if you ever want to call me and get some information on the grant process from our angle, you're welcome to.
I will.
So,
All right,
thanks
you.
for allowing me to speak.
Oh, no, thank
Thanks
you.
for being
So, with that in mind, is there a motion now to approve the 2 items that were taken out of the consent? Board Member Buchanan.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we take action to approve funding for the submitted 2024 Heritage Fund Local Regional State Park grant application for Tohono O'odham Nation Walk Community Park for $500,000, and that we approve funding for the submitted 2024 Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application for the Tohono O'odham Nation Walk Community Park for $1 million.
Motion is on the floor. Is there a second? Sarah, is that you?
That's me.
All right, thank you very much. It's kind of in your neighborhood a little bit, right?
Very
Yep, the TO neighbors are ranch, so this is very close to me and I'm delighted to hear about it.
Oh, good. Well, we'll definitely make sure you are included on that then. Thank you, Sarah. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Yes.
John Sefton.
Yes.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmer.
Aye.
Sure.
Motion passes unanimously. Yeah, thank you very much, Barbara. Really appreciate your help. Okay, moving on now to, I believe we're to item 3, right?
Right.
All right, item 3. This, and by the way, Mickey, why don't you, a 2-minute real recap on the number of grants that we just approved, the amount, I'm sorry, Jeff,
You're fine.
let Mickey come up. I mean, these guys have been working their tails off here for the last 3 months, getting all of this ready to go, so go ahead, Mickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So in this At this board meeting, we have 29 applications that were submitted, 13 are new applicants. As you said, they've been vetted by OPEC, ASCOT, and ARC with all consent approved recommendations. 60% of the Heritage Fund will be, if the project is now used. So it's a huge, Heritage Fund is certainly in demand, and 60% will be used in this grant. So the total amount of the awarded projects today is $6,164,579 with over $3 million in match. So almost $10 million in total economic impact for the grants that we're.
Very good. And, you know, Barbara's comment about the $500,000 creative match from the county, all of these grant applications had to go through similar kinds of creative wizardry to be able to come up with this, so congratulations. All right, let's go to item number 3, the consideration and action to appoint applicants to the Ascot Trail Group. And we have Jeff Schmidt to talk about these folks, and I think a few of them are on the line, if I remember right.
Yeah, Chairman Larson, I believe Carrie, Michael, and Heather are on the phone with us this morning. So Chairman Larson, members of the board, the Arizona State Committee on Trails, or ASCOT, serves in an advisory capacity to the Arizona State Parks Board. The mission of ASCOT is to advise the State Parks Board and park staff on the planning, development, funding, maintenance, and promotion of non-motorized trails in Arizona. When fully staffed, the committee is comprised of 15 members who represent various forms of non-motorized recreation types, including hikers, bikers, and equestrian users. The committee for most of 2023 has fluctuated between 13 and 12 active members, as 2 positions remain unfilled through 2023, and 1 member recently resigned, as our member Tammy Pike recently retired from her position with the Bureau of Land Management. So I just want to give a shout out to Tammy, not only for her service to ASCOT, but for her service to Arizona and really to the country. So this brings us to our committees, to the future state of the committee. As of January 1st, 2024, the committee will have 10 vacancies that need to be filled. One of our members, Mary Van Roy, has completed 2 consecutive 1-year terms and is thus ineligible to continue serving on the committee. She would be eligible to reapply after 1 year away. If she chooses to do so, we would certainly welcome her back. Mary has been one of our most consistent and productive members, and again, on behalf of State Parks, the State Parks Board, State Parks staff, just want to thank Mary for her service to ASCOT and really to the state of Arizona. We're actually going to formally recognize her during the next ASCOT meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for January 25th. So we have 6 current members, including Linda Slay, Justin Inglis, Paul King, Bev Showalter, Hezekiah Allen, and Cynthia Namath, who are completing their first terms. They have all agreed to continue on and serve second terms. We also received 4 applications for new members. So our first application was actually submitted by Michael Harris, who was on the call today representing the Verde Search and Rescue Posse. Michael has now applied for and received several grants through State Parks, so he's become somewhat familiar with the process, the grant submission review and approval process. He and the Search and Rescue Posse have also been great stewards of the funds to this point. They've spent the money very quickly, very efficiently, so we certainly appreciate that. He's a member of the Verde Search and Rescue Posse. He's well versed in various forms of non-motorized recreation, as he's having to come out and actually, rescue some of us less experienced hikers. So our second new application was submitted by Carrie Connell. So in addition to 16 years of Parks and Rec experience, Carrie has previous advisory committee experience serving for 3 years on the Lafayette Open Space Advisory Committee. I believe that's Lafayette, Colorado. Carrie has also assisted as a peer reviewer for Colorado State's Trails Grant Program, so she certainly has experience in this type of role. So our third application was submitted by Heather Vague, who's an avid triathlete and trail runner. Heather actually just after serving for 13 years in the Army has since separated, and she's now kind of looking for a way to serve her community and state in a different capacity. Heather actually lives in Cochise County, which over the last few years has been somewhat underrepresented in terms of ASCOT members, so we're excited to recommend her. And then our final application was submitted by Eric Nielsen, who, similar to Heather, recently retired from a career with the federal government and really is looking for new ways to continue serving the public and giving back to the state and the country. Eric is an enthusiastic recreational hiker and advocate of teaching responsible outdoor recreation. Additionally, he and his wife own a small travel trailer, which they use about on a monthly basis to get out to various outdoor recreation spaces in the state. So after reviewing these applications, grant staff recommends that the State Parks Board approve these 10 members listed on the report. Chairman Larson, I believe Carrie, Michael, and Heather are joining us on the phone today, so we are open to answering any questions the board may have.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments by the board?
Just thank you.
Yeah. By the way, first of all, to Carrie, Michael, Heather, you're all on the phone line, I take it?
Correct.
So Heather, you're not running out on the trail this morning?
She's done.
All right, never mind. Nothing more for today. Anyway, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. Jeff, thank you for vetting it. Is there a motion to approve the members of ASCOT as presented by staff?
Mr. Chair, I move that the State Parks Board approve Linda Slay, I'm gonna kill these names,
It's all right.
Justin Inglis, Paul King, Bev Showalter, Hezekiah Allen, Cynthia Neymark, Eric Nielsen, Carrie Knoll, Michael Harris, and Heather Vague to the Arizona State Committee on Trails.
Very good. Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Again, thank you, people, for joining us today, and good luck working with Jeff on the trails. Very important responsibility and lots of good work ahead of us. So with that in mind, I will just ask for acclamation for this. So all those in favor of the slate of people as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No opposed, therefore the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman Larson, members of the board, happy holidays.
Nice socks, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 4. And we're now gonna do to the off-ag people, this is with having Matt come up and similar recommendations.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The Arizona Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group is a 7-member panel comprised of 1 sportsman's representative, 5 off-highway vehicle organization representatives, and 1 private off-highway vehicle user. They serve in an advisory capacity to the State Parks Board, similar to ASCOT, but on motorized recreation, providing recommendations on grants, staff directives, and how off-highway vehicle management should occur within our agency. We currently have 4 vacancies. Jason Cobb from Maricopa County has served 2 terms, and we'd like to recognize him and thank him for his service. Todd Davis served 2 terms from Pima County, and we'd like to recognize him and thank him for his service. Tom Murphy has served 1 term and is requesting to serve a 2nd, so we did something right there. He's wanting to hang out for another 3 years. We also have member Chuck Wood, who served 2 years, and we'd like to thank him and recognize him for his service as well. As far as new members that we are recommending for approval, Nina Barlow currently serves as a member of the Tread Lightly Board, is an avid 4x4 user, and is an important partner of the Red Rock Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council, or Conservation Crew. She also aids in the working group as a working group member for the Greater Sedona Recreation Collaborative, which is an active group engaged in providing guidance to the City of Sedona, Yavapai County, National Forest Service, and other land management and off-highway vehicle management agencies for the Sedona area. Mike Cook currently serves as the treasurer for the Trail Riders of Southern Arizona and has helped their organization complete several grants since becoming a member in 2018. One of their most well-known projects is the completion of the popular single-track area of Red Springs in Southern Arizona. Mike comes from the same riding group as our former OFAC chair, Todd Davis. So we're hopeful that there's going to be continued great service out of Southern Arizona and that group specifically on OFAC. Tom Murphy, as I mentioned, is a returning or requesting to return member. He's an active member of his club, the Arizona ATV Riders, having served as president, vice president, treasurer, and member at large, and is now just an active member within that club. As I mentioned, he's wrapping up his first term, and we're looking forward to having his guidance and knowledge moving forward at his second term. Jeff Olson, our final member for recommendation, is an active member of the White Mountain Open Trails Association. He's actively engaged in supporting the Arizona Alpine Trail Group. He's an avid outdoorsman and looks forward to engaging with the off-highway vehicle community at a state level. In his 30-year career with Phoenix Fire, he served as firefighter, engineer, and captain, and he has lived in Eager since 2007 when he retired, and we look forward to having his leadership and knowledge on OFAC. After review and discussion with all of these applicants, staff have recommended to propose these members to serve on OFAC from January 2024 to December of 2026. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe all four are on the line if there's any questions for them.
All right. So we have Nina, Mike, Tom, and Jeff on the line. Thank you very much for listening in. Board Member Buchanan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Matt, this is a question for you, not for the nominees. But understand what the role is of this advisory committee and how they advise us at the State Parks Board. But what I'm trying to understand is what is the linkage between that interest and expertise? How does that feed into what Director Broscheid does when he represents state parks at the Governor's Council, at the Legislative Council? I think it was run by Senator Kerr on off-highway vehicle. Is there a connection? Because those are two different things, I think.
I think,
Please.
Member Larson, Member Buchanan, that we kind of all work together. I provide regular updates on that off-highway vehicle committee. Bob and I work directly on information that comes out of that. I share that on monthly meetings, with different land managers and other entities that are involved in off-highway vehicle recreation. But my understanding is that OFAG primarily serves in a guidance related to grants, grant scoring, grant criteria, and how we utilize our funding as an agency that we receive from ADOT for off-highway vehicle recreation.
Okay.
So they're
Well,
not.
then let me make a suggestion. Maybe we ought to take a look at their terms of reference, since this legislative process is a relatively new entity. But what I'm trying to I'm trying to get some expertise and views to feed into that from the state parks perspective. That if you ask me for help, I have a tractor. I don't have an off-highway vehicle, so I would not be a good person to give you that kind of expertise or that perspective. That's what I'm trying to think. How do we leverage them to ensure that their perspective is considered?
Yeah, we can certainly engage with them related to any content that comes out or reports that come out of the legislative committee. We can bring them to this, group for review and discussion and conversation, and Bob and I can certainly report back to that legislative committee as to recommendations. I also host ongoing monthly meetings with different land managers and other state agencies that manage off-highway vehicle recreation. So it's kind of an ongoing web of information sharing as to what's happening at the state level, what's happening with the federal land managers, what the different impacts are. We're engaged in several different working groups. I unfortunately ended up getting sick back at the October meeting, so there is another committee meeting on January 4th that I'll finally be giving my presentation as to how we operate as an agency, and I'm hopeful that that may provide a little bit more clarity on our big picture view at parks and how we operate, and how we're engaged at the state level and with federal partners as well. off-highway vehicle recreation, because it's, like I said, it's very interwoven.
Just a quick question, maybe, Bess. Does the legislative committee call for stakeholder group rosters or anything along that line to where you can formalize the OFAG? You look at the professionals here.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
But they do have non-governmental organizations or stakeholders on the recommendation panel, so that you're getting that insight. But I think Matt said it perfectly, is, you know, from setting priorities to grants, they're on the ground, and that expertise that they have informs grants, but also informs us something on a much bigger landscape. That helps us communicate with things with like Game and Fish Department, State Land Department, federal agencies. So yeah, it kind of goes back and forth, back and forth. I always say, I think we're the best positioned to really talk about what's going on the ground, because you see the demand for grants, what kind of grants, you know, the priorities that we're kind of following, as you guys know, change as they're all recommendations. But yeah, they have a lot of really good discussions on OFAG about what's going on out there, and I know our team is listening to that. But so in the education and the grants component, and Game and Fish gets it also from the law enforcement side. And then we'll, hopefully with Matt's presentation, if there's any changes in the legislation, we're right at the front, you know, helping shape those, if any, as we go. So yeah, it's an iterative process. It just keeps flowing back and forth constantly. And have people like this with this kind of experience on OFAG, it's invaluable. Right. Because they're the eyes and ears on the ground.
Any other comments, questions? All right, with that in mind, and again, Nina and Mike, Tom, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us. Is there a motion to approve?
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board appoint Nina Barlow, Mike Cook, Tom Murphy, and Jeff Olson to the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
John Sefton, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let's have just by acclamation, all those in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Sarah. All those opposed? None. Here, motion passes unanimously. Again, thank you, Matt, and thank you, folks, for your commitment to this area. All right, we have some special guests today, again, who made the trip all the way over from San Rafael. So Carol and Mike, I guess, Carol, you're up, and you're going to tell us all about the good things. And actually, you know what, I think I will defer to Board Member Buchanan to kind of introduce you, since the connection kind of came through him as well.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I can't remember exactly when, Sarah, we convened a meeting from the State Parks Board a year or so ago? March. Thanks. It seems like a year to me. And it was actually held at the headquarters of the historic headquarters of the San Rafael Ranch, which you see pictured here. And it was an opportunity to listen from stakeholders, people, and it included members of the Sharp family who grew up on the ranch, neighbors of the ranch like we have represented here, people who had an interest in conserving and preserving parts of the ranch. I use the word preservation intentionally with respect to structures, and conservation intentionally with respect to the state natural area. One of the common themes at that time was the park has been sitting closed, or not the park, the state natural area has been sitting closed for many, many years for a number of reasons, but the biggest one's probably deteriorating facilities and safety issues. And the group, the State Parks and Trails Department, led by our Deputy Director, Sarah Weber, wanted to hear from everybody what their opinions were. So we had that meeting. It was a great success, but one of the offshoots of that meeting was the momentum building from a group of interested stakeholders in and around the San Rafael Valley to develop a friends group. And so initially we put them in touch with Friends of Tonto Bridge. And then eventually they met in person, I think with Sarah as well, with Friends Group at Oracle. Thank you, because I was not there at that one. Oracle State Park. And now they are continuing to build momentum. And we have a future meeting in early February, which I'm sure Carol and Sarah will discuss. So with that, Carol Bonchock Hilton,
You're
over
just
to you.
taking my fire away, so I'll just leave it.
Any questions?
Welcome, Carol. And Mike.
Chairman Larson, board members, staff, thank you for allowing me to be here today. As Jeff said, my name is Carol Bonchock. I am president of the Friends of San Rafael Valley. Regretfully, some of the other board members were unable to attend today because of prior commitments, which I'm sure everybody else is anxious to get out of here and start the holiday events. But we were there. As Jeff mentioned, last March he invited a group of us to join the state park staff at the San Rafael Ranch. And we were all interested in hearing what state parks had to say with regard to the natural area. For almost a quarter of a century now, those of us in the area have watched the property deteriorate and unfortunately survived 2 wildland fires that didn't bring the buildings down. And so we were interested, what exactly does state parks have in mind? Unfortunately, as part of that meeting, we ended up raising more questions than we had answers. But one thing that came out of that, as Jeff indicated, was the idea for a friends group. We thought it had merit, but we were also concerned at that point as just how committed was state parks from that standpoint. We knew that a mission of a friends group would basically be the preservation and conservation of the natural area and the buildings that were there. But we wanted to be sure state parks this time was committed in the long term. Some of you I don't think anybody on the current board or staff was around when the buildings were open previously for a short period of time. But many of us that live in the area do remember that, and we did not want to see that happening again. But the answer came in August when we did have the meeting in Oracle, and state park staff recommended that they develop a vision statement for state parks. And the important part was they asked us to be a part of that. They asked us to help identify some of the individuals who were interested and would be committed to the San Rafael natural area. That was really the point that convinced us that State Parks was ready to do something at long last, and we began to establish the organization. We've made a serious decision to not call it Friends of the San Rafael Natural Area. We chose instead to call it Friends of the San Rafael Valley. The reason for that was name recognition. We really think name recognition is important initially from the standpoint of recruiting volunteers, for basically getting involved with a number of organizations, and also fundraising. The San Rafael Valley itself is well known for being a short grass prairie in the southeast, one of the last remaining ones. It's headwaters of the Santa Cruz River. It's home of 17 threatened and endangered species. It's an Audubon important bird area, and it's part of Fort Huachuca's Sentinel landscape. Now, those things are all also related very much to the San Rafael natural area, except there's never been any signage at the property, and there's really been no activity for well over 10 years. And as a result, people do not at this point associate State Parks natural area with the valley. Hopefully in the future that will change as we work together and collaborate and have things moving forward. In terms of our progress, a month ago today, we received our confirmation from the Arizona Corporation Commission and approval as an Arizona nonprofit corporation.
Nice.
We're currently working on the paperwork, tedious as it may be, for 501c3 status. I think they'd make it easier for nonprofits instead of digging in there. We do hope to have that completed and in their hands by early in 2024. Just as a little bit of a background, the Friends Group, the board members, basically we have 6 members at this point in time. Myself and my husband live on the east side of the Patagonia Mountains. We overlook the San Rafael, and more specifically, I see that from my front window every day. So it's a subtle reminder of what we have to gain if we are able to proceed in the future. 2 other members of the board, Maureen and Jolene, are members of the De La Osa family. If you're from that area, you would know that the De La Osa family has been in the San Rafael Valley. They've lived and worked there since the 1880s. They're still very active, and at the present time, they own probably in excess of 500 acres on the southwest border of the state natural area. So they have an interest and a commitment ongoing for that property also. The next member of the board is someone that Jeff made reference to, and that's Dan Sharp. Dan Sharp is the great-grandson of Colonel William Green, who originally purchased the property in 1903. Dan was raised on San Rafael. He lived and worked there until such time as the Nature Conservancy and the Parks Board took over the property. Needless to say, the family has a great interest in the property and is really looking forward to it being open in the future. The last 2 board members are not as closely related, although they have become so in the last few years with the Valley. Linda Shore is the curator for the Patagonia Museum, and she found a love of the Valley in the area when the Patagonia Museum started the restoration of the Loquillo Schoolhouse. The Loquillo Schoolhouse is about 1.5 miles to the southwest of the ranch house here, and that was where most of the people from the southern part of the valley attended grade school before moving on. The last member is Chuck Klingenstein. Chuck is a land use planner, and he is also treasurer of the Borderlands Restoration Network, which is a group that has been very active in the valley. Although the San Rafael is not open to the public, we believe that there's a number of ways that we as the Friends Group can continue to work and support state parks while decisions are being made for the future. In keeping with the definition that I found for the natural area, its primary purpose is the protection and the preservation and study of the site's natural resources. That's pretty key to us in terms of that conservation effort as we move forward. So one of the Friends projects initially was, as was requested by Sarah and others, that we reach out to organizations and individuals who have either worked in the valley or have been active with conservation efforts. I was really astounded. The response was absolutely overwhelming from those individuals. Not only are they willing to take part and be involved with the development of a vision statement, but they're very, very interested in ongoing conservation efforts and being a part of that in the future. From our standpoint, collaborations with these organizations, it will not only bring some additional funding to the natural area because these groups do have funding sources, but also what will be of equal importance is that the more active they're involved, the more things they do, they will be reporting back to their supporters and donors. And that will bring additional recognition in people who are looking to help in our areas. Many of the organizations, the Fish and Wildlife, Game and Fish, Borderlands Group, many of the land trusts, they have all been collaborating in other parts of the valley up to this point as part of the Sentinel landscape. The Sentinel landscape is actually Fort Huachuca related. And what it is federal funding that's earmarked specifically for grasslands and forests and to help do the preservation and conservation of those in the Fort Huachuca electromagnetic testing area, of which the San Rafael Natural Area is front and center. So there's opportunities there, they already have those connections. So I want to assure you that the Friends Group will continue to advocate for conservation through collaboration with these groups, and also the reinstatement of grazing on the natural area. I know that you've recently had some discussions with Mr. Humphreys, and we all hope that will continue, because grazing has proven in the San Rafael Valley to be a clear purpose for that prairie. I challenge anybody to go through the San Rafael Valley and find 1 acre of land that isn't well maintained, because it's been important to the ranchers and they live by conservation rules. The other focus area for us is, of course, the main house and the surrounding buildings. They are in bad shape, but we will be there. We will try to support in any way we can additional fundraising efforts and whatever else it takes, a little bit of elbow grease if we're allowed. Dealing with, we're finding, some of us were in government before and understand, but many people are having a difficult time understanding that we can't just go out there and do things, that we basically have a few rules to follow, especially with the preservation office, et cetera. But we will work together and hopefully get some additional funding. What we hope on the long term is that the building itself could be something like we call an environmental land center. And what we're looking for is that we would be able to showcase the biodiversity of the area, the history and culture of the area, watershed management, especially because 2 miles of the Santa Cruz River run through the natural area and needs to have restoration done to it. But it needs to be then documented that people can appreciate that. And also how the human and natural resources fit together in the valley, because they have for centuries now, and it's been a positive result. The last thing that we look at it as being a repository for any of the studies and information that has been gathered over the years and in the future. Regretfully, when the facility was open and a number of artifacts and many other things along with studies were conducted, the material was removed from the building. And at this point, I understand State Parks is having a difficult time locating some of that. One group that has been recently located was a study was done of the grasslands, and there's a file cabinet with all the pressed grasslands and all the research information that's still in the building. Those types of things should be in the building and remain there. And most importantly, that grassland study is going to be critical as they start looking now again at the grasslands and what has happened to it over the last 10 plus years, what changes have occurred. Due to its remote location, none of us expect that the facility is ever going to be open full-time, throughout the year. It's obviously not very accessible if you've been there. It looks beautiful here, but you have about 20 miles of unpaved and very rarely graded dirt road to get to it. So it's not a popular location unless you happen to be one of the trail riders who is looking to go out and enjoy a ride. But from that standpoint, also the people that have an interest in that are basically those who are interested in the biodiversity of the area, the environmental issues. They're used to going to remote locations, and so they will indeed come to that facility. And most importantly, we hope that it would also be that educational place for all age groups to come in. For all of us, the next major milestone is, of course, the vision meeting on the vision statement, which is scheduled now for February 1st. We look forward. At this point, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of probably at least 20 other organizations that have agreed to be a part of that collaboration, and it's an important step forward. So in closing, I'd just like to say that once we have finished with that vision statement and we know going forward where State Parks is, we will put together a plan of work, and hopefully we'll be back to tell you what type of things we would like to do in the future and how we can help to raise public awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. So Sarah, any comments? I mean, you've obviously been kind of the liaison here with it, so anything from staff?
Oh, I just wanna say, as you can tell, Carol's an exceptional leader. She comes with so much experience. And she's really, I think, the reason that we're in the spot that we are today. We're really excited about the opportunity to go back down, be in Patagonia on the 1st of February, and to bring everyone together. And for your awareness, we're working with Southwest Decision Resource Center to facilitate that conversation, so that we're not, facilitating the conversation and then making the decision about what was said. And that will really allow, I think, an opportunity for all voices to be heard and to develop a vision for the property and the future use of said property. That will then allow us, in partnership with Carol's group and other partner organizations, to move forward, to seek funding, and to move that plan along. But, we really took a step back, I think, in the last few meetings and said, well, where do we need to start? And I think that's having a real clear shared vision of what this should and can look like, informed by the community that exists around it, the family that live there, and the state at large. And so, as I think you heard, it's an incredible place. I hope you all get a chance to go down there if you haven't yet. It's really quite magical and unlike anywhere else in Arizona. So it's really an honor to work on this project. And again, I think it's thanks to Carol and a lot of other dedicated folks that it's come along this far. And we're excited to just keep that momentum moving forward.
Thank you. Other comments?
I'd like to, thanks, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a couple of comments. First of all, thanks to Carol and Mike. Thanks for making the drive. That's not an easy drive. And
It's not as much fun as going to the valley, that's for
yeah,
sure.
that's right. And thanks to Sarah. Thanks for your leadership in not letting this go. I do want to just make a couple of comments about this. So if you haven't been, because I know a number of us have not been to the San Rafael Valley, it is a very unique place. And Carol mentioned that, it's the headwaters of the Santa Cruz River. Now, if you're thinking about geography, you're thinking, wait a second, Santa Cruz River flows south to north from Nogales to Tucson. How could this be the headwaters? Well, that valley's about roughly 5,000 feet at the valley floor, and the headwaters are up on the north end of the valley, and the river flows south into Mexico and does a big button hook and comes back through Nogales. This is, and I may be off here, I may not be exactly correct, but I believe this is the largest native shortgrass prairie in the state. It's one of the largest remaining in the United States. And what makes it such an incredible place is not just the state natural area, that's a big part of it, but all the ranchers in the area. I was in the valley last night on a ranch, and all the ranchers in the area are adamantly committed to the ethics of conservation. And you don't find overgrazing there. It's been this way for more than 100 years. So big herds of pronghorn antelope, lots of wildlife. It really is a unique place. That's why University of Arizona, the Game and Fish Department, Borderlands Restoration, all these, Arizona Antelope Foundation, all these different groups actually see the importance of this. If you haven't been there and you recognize that house, it's been in a lot of movie sets. Everything from Oklahoma, McClintock, Little House on the Prairie, all kinds of things. I don't think that was actually the Little House, but it has been there. My concern since I've been on the board with respect to this property is it's frankly the buildings are falling apart, and I know Bob and Sarah know this far better than I do, but we have a very healthy budget, but it's never enough to do all the maintenance, the backlog of all the things across all of our parks and natural areas and conservation areas, and so it's always a problem. It's always a tension. I'm thankful to the establishment of the Friends Group because, you know, I know them and they're not gonna be quiet about things. They're gonna bring energy and resources to help us do what needs to be done. When I look back at our mission, you know, this is a prime example. We need to preserve this place. We need to preserve it for the historic reasons, but we also need to conserve it for the natural reasons. And so I just wanna thank all of you for bringing your attention to this and not letting it go.
Thank you, Jeff, really appreciate that. Any other comments from board members? Sarah, anything on your end? I suspect you're a little familiar with this area as well.
No, thank you, we'd be happy.
Yes, actually, I have a friend who's part of the Sharp family, and so I've heard a lot about it from that context with her, and I think that's great that you guys are working on it, and big thanks to that Friends group for all their legwork.
Very good, thank you, board member. All right, thanks, really appreciate you coming here, and I know you're headed back for all the reasons you want to be there and not here.
Touche.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on then to the last part of the meeting. First of all, future agenda items. Board members may identify items or issues they wish to be considered for inclusion. Board member Buchanan.
So thanks, Mr. Chairman. I know that at some point in time in the future, we're gonna do a deep dive into all our maintenance issues and everything. So thanks, I know that you've got that on the hook. Thanks for doing that. The other thing is I got through the Game and Fish Department,
right,
which I'm also part of, I got a request from, I believe you, Mr. Chairman, to do a presentation on the Game and Fish Department. From my perspective, with a 3-hour drive, it probably ought to be a personal presence. I'm available for the February meeting, whether we do that here or somewhere else in the state.
Okay.
And then that's the last one. I know we're trying to get a meeting up at Tonto Bridge at some point in time in the future. That's a good opportunity if not some other time, from my perspective.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Other future agenda items, board members? Just make Kelly reminded me the other day, January's meeting, of course, is where we nominate and elect chair and vice chair in accordance with the Arizona Administrative Code R12-8-202-A-1 at the first meeting in January. So for those of you who are interested in wanting to go for that selection, please keep that in mind, and we will do that first on the agenda in January. All right, with that, Bob, let's move to you on Executive Director's Report on current events.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Been busy. I think the last time we met was September, end of September. So I'll kind of run through these. I just wanted to let you all know, you have a copy of our.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, it's our annual report, hot off the press. I mean,
Alright.
this is like less than 24 hours old. So I want to make sure, a lot of the things I'm gonna talk at are in there, and you
Okay.
get with a lot more information, but,
The
we,
pictures are fab.
yeah, they do. That's the Super Bloom at Picacho. Obviously, that was huge this past year, but we completed, and after a lot of work by a lot of people, including our deputy director, the all-agency conference we held in Payson a few weeks ago. It was the first time we brought our entire agency together in almost 8 years, and we had a whole list of guest speakers, but it was a really great event to bring everybody together and talk about where we're going, where we've been and where we're going. Coupled with that, we've completed our cohort number 2 of our Emerging Leaders Program. This is if you remember, this is our contract with the University of Denver, the Daniels Business School. We've run another 25 people through, so for a total of 50 people have gone through a pretty intense leadership program. That's also in that write-up as well. I got to attend the Arizona Wildlife Federation's 100-year celebration, and they actually made me speak at that thing. So I got to follow a former commissioner and current rancher, Bill Brake, as well as a legislator, so that's a hard act to follow when you follow those two. They've never met a microphone they didn't like, so they went on for a while. That was really good to catch up with those folks. We got to attend, both Sarah and I got to attend the Glassford Dells Regional Park celebration. This is the actual state land auction that they had won for 3,500 acres of state trust land that's gonna go to that regional park up there with the city of Prescott and the city of Prescott Valley. And so there's a really big celebration. You know, we provided a lot of support through the State Historic Preservation Office as well, but also through our planning and any other assistance, and they will be submitting grants here real quick to get that park up and running. We got to attend the Arizona Heritage Alliance's annual board meeting a couple weeks ago. This is their entire board, and we got to update them on where we're going and compare notes on the upcoming legislative session and what they're hearing, and we attend that every year, and we really appreciate the opportunity to go. The one thing to get on your calendars, I know it'll be the day after everybody goes down south to the vision meeting that was just talked about. February 2nd is the Rockin' River grand opening. We are opening that park. Come hell or high water, that thing is opening. We've also got tentative confirmation, Governor Hobbs will be there, a lot of her staff. It's tentative because, you know, governors, something can happen and they're gone, but right now they've tentatively agreed to that. There's gonna be a lot of dignitaries. You all are certainly invited to go up there and see that. I've also been appointed to the Bureau of Land Management's Resource Advisory Council. This is the council, the RAC is the council that advises the state director on all BLM issues, comments on fees. I'm actually an appointed member representing recreation in the state. This is my second tour. I was the Game and Fish Department liaison, the state liaison, non-voting member previously. This one, I get to vote this time. So we had our first kind of get-together meeting, really good, powerful group. For those you don't know, it's not just you raise your hand and go. The nominations get submitted by both senators. Senator Kelly and Senator Sinema submitted it, and it went all the way to the White House for approval. So this is a big deal, and it's a lot of important work on there. A lot of great people too that are on that RAC. And then finally, as we've been working, talking about the agency construction and backlog and maintenance things that we've been talking with the new administration about where we are funding wise. Long story short, and lots of information, we've gotten the go-ahead to explore possible long-term funding initiatives for Arizona State Parks. Kind of modeled after Keep Colorado Wild Pass. This is a charge that goes on. License plate registrations, I think Colorado is $29 per license plate. It's an opt-out program. It generates a lot of money. But what they did, and this is really, I want to clarify, it's to go forward with exploring the options, not running legislation or anything, and that we're going to start pulling together a coalition. We're going to talk about funding for this agency for a very long time, and what is that going to look like? And so we've got at least a year if we can get something ready for legislation to drop next session, not this session, the next session, 25. So we're going to be pulling together a coalition. We already started meeting with some groups about their ideas, not just how and how much, but what and where can that funding go to. So there's going to be a lot of folks jumping on a bandwagon here real quick, and we're going to try to do the best that we can. So we're really, really excited about this. This is the first time this discussion's happened since the Heritage Fund passed for Arizona State Parks. This is a huge opportunity, and we're going to go neck deep into this thing and really pour it on. So hopefully we'll be able to come up. We'll be keeping you guys briefed along the way. It's the time. And so we're real excited about that, and real thankful that they're willing to see what comes out and see what we can come up with. So,
well, and I think just from a personal basis, for all of us who have been here when the recession hit and the agency was zeroed out on its funding, and the improvements and what you've been able to do since then is remarkable in and of itself, but that permanent funding thing is still that big question mark. So you mentioned the Colorado model. My guess is there are other western states that are also faced with this exact same area. So the more that we can kind of look at where does Arizona place in that western alignment of funding, whether it's vehicle license plates or other forms, would certainly be appropriate. So yeah, I think the timing's gotta be right now. We don't know what 5 years is gonna be like at all, legislation. So thank you, Bob. All right, anything else?
Nope, thank you very
All
much.
right, current events, board members? Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've got one, if I talk about riding a horse down in Sonoyta Creek, you won't be surprised that I'm gonna also talk about cows that are still there.
Yes.
Both Herefords and Charolais, I didn't get a look at the brands last week, but they're tearing it up.
Yep.
And we have got to do something or, they're in the middle of the riparian area and, it's just a pretty fragile place, so please help. I've talked to the director down there. He's tracking, but, as you are far better aware than I am, this is not just a parks problem, it's a game and fish problem. Because their fence was cut, to enable some of this and I just talked about a lot of great ranchers and these cows did not come from great ranchers.
No,
So,
Will the great ranchers go get them?
no.
I think there's some legality there. They're actually owned by somebody that cut fences to put them, allow them into state parks.
Mr.
So
Chairman-
please,
Give the cows
don't give up
share.
on that.
Mr. Chairman,
If you need help, let me know.
remember we actually got a call from Game and Fish this week, actually, there's about 10 to 12 that are in there. And we're gonna cost share contracting somebody to go in there and round up the rest of them. I think this is gonna be kind of an annual thing until we can get them all out. But yeah, we got that call immediately and, we're working with them. So thanks for your diligence on that too.
And then do you charge the rancher?
It's how it costs.
The rancher's being charged, but that's a different thing.
That's a different thing.
That's
Okay.
legal issue.
Oh,
Different kind of charge.
That's a good
Different
charge.
charge.
I'm okay with that
Any
charge.
other current events? Sarah, anything that you would like? Sarah, board member? I'm looking at the phone and I see Sarah and it's like, wait, I'm sorry. Sarah King, do you have any comments that you'd like to share?
I don't have anything though. Thanks for asking.
All right, very good. Call to the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to raise any issues for us, for our consideration. Hearing none, again, thank you. Future meeting dates are coming up, and as Board Member Buchanan said, we do plan to do a few on the road, of course, subject to your chair and vice chair arrangements in January. We very much would like to get up to Tonto at some point here in the next time, and keep going statewide 3 or 4 times during the course of the year if we're able to do that. And with that in mind, on behalf of myself, for sure, wishing everybody a very happy holidays, safe, healthy season. Looking forward to getting us all back in January and just everybody be safe. So with that in mind, we will adjourn the meeting.